Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Tori and today I am going to finally do my January pages in my reading journal, even though January is completely over and I still have no idea what I'm going to be doing. But since the month is over, I am also going to be doing I'm going to be completing everything because I've already got all of that data for January. So we're just going to jump right in and kind of try and figure it out as I go, I guess. So I have throughout the month kind of filled in some of these pages. I read 8 books in January, and I do have some stuff sketched out here, though I'm not sure really how I'm feeling about it. So I guess, like I said, we're just going to jump right in and I'm just going to try and figure it out as we go, because I'm so unsure about all of this right now. I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, which I'm sure a lot of you would beg to differ. But I'm feeling very overwhelmed with my reading journal right now and I have no idea why. So I am just going to jump into it and hope that alleviates maybe some of this odd feeling that I'm having right now towards it. So far, I have sketched out a cover page essentially, and then I do want to keep my visual time to read calendar. I love looking at that, and I think it's so fun to look at the end of the month. But as I look at this right now, I think I want to change it up a bit. I think I want to maybe move this calendar up some, and then put little mini book covers the same size as where'd they go? Hello, the same size as these ones, maybe down here at the bottom, with a little rating stamp. Or maybe I'll make them one more bigger. How much would that be? 2.5. Is that 1 inch? Yeah, they'd be about 1 inch wide. But then I'd have to reprint all 8 of my book covers again. Mainly because, let me show you. I have this new stamp set. This is one of my stamp sets. And it's meant to be an add-on to the My Reading Journal stamp set. So I did another one and made just the stars a little bit different. So these stars, while they achieve the same thing as the stars in that stamp set, they're all a little bit different. So there's just lots of options now. So I have a feeling I'm going to be using these a ton. And these ones are also measured to fit within the dot grid spaces. So I want to use these in this setup because I'm obsessed with them. I love them so much. So I think I might have to reprint covers. I just reprinted all these covers too. Like, legitimately, I'm not even kidding. I just printed out more covers because I forgot. So I'm going to have to put this back through my printer and print all these books out with a 1 inch cover. Okay. So let me figure myself out. So we'll come back to that. I also, and I don't know if I've spoken about this yet, I'll put like a timestamp up here for when I actually start creating, because I feel like I'm going to be rambling quite a bit. Apologies in advance for those that don't want to listen to me ramble. Like I said, I'll just pop a timestamp up here for when I actually start creating. But since I am not doing a reading log in my monthlies anymore, which is probably a big part of why I feel so thrown off, because that's always been a very big main part of my monthly setups, I decided that I would try and do a mini challenge for each month. So for January, I went on Storygraph. I haven't gone back and looked up her name yet, but I'm going to put a little challenge by, and then the person on Storygraph who I got this challenge from, whose challenge I joined on Storygraph, essentially. It was just called January Challenge, so I'm just going to title it January Challenge. And then there was the first prompt was a new release, a winter sport prompt, and then there was a blue or white cover, and then a tackle your TBR, which I did complete. That's each of these books right here. The Dictionary of Lost Words was the Tackle My TBR. Shoot Your Shot released in January, so that's my new release. Ricochet was an ice hockey book, so that is my winter sport. And I did raid the novella Unhinged, so that's my white cover. So I did complete the challenge for January, and I'm super excited about that. So I've got that I'm going to do over here. And then on this page right here, I am going to make like a little mini bookshelf. I did sketch this out, and I'm just going to write the title of each book in here for the 8 books that I read. And then I'm going to use a circle stencil that I have to make pie graphs for the formats, pages, genres, and the type. So whether it's a novella, novel, graphic novel, things like that. I do want to start tracking the types of books that I'm reading. So I've got that in here as well. And then I want to paste down at the very bottom what my average rating for each book was as well. So the reason I think I want to add book covers to this is because I want to use a highlighter and highlight the, where I was reading them. And then I'm thinking I could color my star ratings in with the marker that I'm using to highlight, if that makes sense. And then I'll be able to use the color in my star ratings to associate it with where it's highlighted in that color on my calendar to essentially kind of tie those two together. I'll also probably write the name in there too, but I think it would be fun to have that link as well. So I think I am going to do that. And then this is just going to be a huge collage. So before I, restart messing with all this and reprint these out. And then I also have covers printed for my review pages as well. I've got a bunch of supplies pulled out over here that I wanted to just share with you as well. I've got my star rating stamp that I'm going to use. I'll probably also use my reading journal stamp, so let me grab that. Okay, so I will be using my reading journal stamp as well for those that are interested in this stamp set. It is in my Etsy shop right now. If you want to go grab it, I've still got quite a few in stock. Yeah, I love this stamp set so much, and I don't think I've ever used it for actual review pages on my channel yet, so I'm super excited to be able to use that. So I'll be using both of these stamp sets. And then I have a bunch of stickers and papers and all sorts of stuff here. So I've got these stickers from, I don't know how to say this, and I wish I knew how to say it. Maybe I should message this shop owner and ask her how I pronounce this. That's the Etsy shop name. BUJO J-E-J. BUJO J-E-J is what I've been saying. I don't know if that's correct, but that's where you can find her. Love her stuff. This is the Dark Academia collection. So super cute. And then these were, I don't know which collection these were from, but also available in her Etsy shop. These are on washi paper. So I pulled those out. This was a freebie, and I'm not sure if I'm going to use it. I might use it because I think it's really cute, and I don't really have a use for the January. I don't really have a use for these months as of right now, so I think including them maybe in my reading journal monthly setups would get some good use out of them. I also have the Tiny Bookshop collection from Paper Monogatari. I love this collection, so I want to use a bunch of this. And then I think I recently talked in my bullet journal setup for February how I did some tea staining of paper. This is graph paper. Can you see that? It's actual graph paper, and I tea stained it, and I'm obsessed with this paper. Oh my, like far too obsessed for my own good, so I cannot wait to do some more. But these are the 3 pieces that I have left over that I think I might potentially use in my setup today. I'm very much not going to use all of this. I can guarantee that. but I've got lots of options, and I think they all kind of match the same vibe-ish. So I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. So I'm gonna print out some more book covers, and then I will come back and we will jump right in, potentially going into voiceover while I just kind of think my thoughts and try and craft away and figure out what the heck I'm doing over here. Jumping right in, I'm going to go ahead and outline my calendar here, and I am quite honestly shocked that I did not mess this up at all, because I did end up moving my calendar up about 4 dot grid spaces to give myself a little bit more room down at the bottom of my page, because I am going to add book covers for all of the books that I read in January. The days of the month that do not have any January days, I'm just using a graph or grid type pattern to fill those in, and then numbering each of the days of the week. I am going to pull out a Pigma Micron in 005 and just add an additional line underneath each of my numbers for the days to kind of separate that a little bit from where the rest of my calendar day is. Essentially, I did this because I didn't want to color that row another color, since I knew I would be using some Tombos to actually kind of highlight where I've read books. And I thought that that could be a little bit confusing when I'm looking back at this calendar. If I do look back at it and, that row is highlighted a color. I usually use a paper trimmer to cut out my book titles, but for some reason I just pulled a pair of scissors and just went to town cutting out these little 1-inch book covers. And then I'm just going to lay them out on these 2 pages, but I want them to be listed in the order that I finished the books. So I'm just checking back to my reading log, my over the year reading log, and making sure that I've got these in the correct kind of timeline of when I finished them. I'm then going to pull out some of my tea stained paper and just cover the whole bottom. And I know that I mentioned in the beginning of this video that I wanted to associate the colors of the books with the star rating color that I use. But because I placed all of this tea stain paper at the bottom of the paper and the top, like I'm basically going to place it all over these 2 spreads, I'm not actually able to color those star ratings in a way that would be noticeable. So I do end up just coming back, and I do this off camera, but I'm just going to color those in with a black pen, like a sketchy coloring kind of. I'm going to color those in with a black pen just to kind of have my ratings on here as well. I start stamping my blank star ratings in Stays On, but I don't know why, like my Stays On when I stamp it out is always like much splotchier. I think I've got like a lot of ink in it because it's pretty much a brand new ink pad. So you'll see that like the distribution of the ink on the stamp isn't like even. So I switch it out for just my Ranger archival black ink, and I'm going to use that instead, and I get a little bit cleaner of an impression with my stamp, because using different inks does make a difference in stamping, unfortunately. So I switched that out, and then I'm just going to lay my books out. All of my star ratings are completely just crooked and just not straight at all. So I'm going to line my book covers up using the actual dot grid of my notebook. That way, even though my star ratings aren't stamped in the same place all the way across my notebook, at least the book covers are straight. And I feel like that gives it kind of like the idea that maybe the star ratings are a little bit straighter than they actually are. Honestly, my eye goes straight to the book covers and I can see those in a straight line. So the star ratings aren't as noticeable to me since the books are lined up. I'm pulling out the Torey Alpha from Heba from my little journal. Heba Alzabai Creates is where you can get this stamp set. I'm just going to stamp out January right on top of the book covers on the left-hand side of my spread here. I will come back in way later in the video and actually color this in, but I'm obsessed with this stamp set and it fits perfectly across the whole kind of page to fill in that big, huge title that I wanted for January. Once I've got that down, I am going to pull out some of the items that I have from Paper Monogatari, and I'm 100% going to use this girl reading sticker. I'm obsessed with it. It's so cute. So I'm going to place some more of that tea stain paper at the top of my page, and then I'm going to place that sticker down. Since I have, since I'm filming this in February, I do have everything already. So it is kind of nice to be able to complete everything all at once. But this video took me a long time to film. I still have a few things that I need to actually do for my January pages. And when I finished this video recording, I was at 3 hours, like almost exactly. I think it was 2 hours and like 53 minutes is what I ended at. So and I still have stuff to do. So I basically will end up setting up all of my pages for my book reviews. But I'm not going to actually place my book reviews on those pages. And I'll probably talk a little bit about my thoughts when we go into each page as well. Just to kind of, give you an idea of what I thought about each book. But even with that, like taking that part out of the video, I still ended up having 3 hours of footage just to basically set everything up and also fill it in. I'm going to pull out 4 different Tombow markers, and I don't know the colors of all of these anymore because the numbers have faded off of most of them. I do know that I'm going to be using N89, which is my favorite marker. And then I'm going to be using 990 and 942, I believe. And I don't remember what the color of the last one is. It's another 94 color. I just don't know what the last number is. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry about that. So then I'm referencing back again to my 2025 books read spread just to get the dates of each book that I read. And I'm going to just alternate colors throughout filling out this calendar to highlight when I read each book. I will then pull out one of my pens and just write in on each of these colored lines the title of the book as well. I will unfortunately end up messing up one of my kind of titles that I'm placing down here. I used a lot of very similar colors when I was, highlighting my lines, and I placed the center in the wrong spot. So I'm going to pull out my 2024 reading journal and cut a piece of paper out of the back of this journal to correct that. And I'm pulling out my old journal instead of using paper from the back of this journal because I figure I already have those pages left over. I might as well use them for my scrap correction pieces if I need them, and then that way I will have more pages to potentially use at the end of this journal, because I'm hoping that this year might be the year that I actually fill up all of the pages in a journal. We will see. I'm kind of hoping that I can do it. So I'm just correcting that. I just put that little piece of scrap paper down and colored it the same color as the row that it is correcting and redrew some of my lines. And then I'm going to finish up adding the titles of all of the books that I read. I will then also pull back out the washi sticker sheet from Paper Monogatari. And I'm going to put this sticker down that says "A book a day keeps reality away" because yes, I love that sticker. So I wanted to get that on my cover page. And then we will flip over and start working on the next 2 pages. And just a forewarning, I work these 2 pages a little bit all over the place. And for me, sometimes I end up doing that just because I can't make a decision. And if I'm struggling to make a decision, basically just stopping what I'm doing and moving on to something else and then coming back at a later time with fresh eyes helps me really figure out what I want to do. And then there's also that with the paper in my notebook, it seems that it takes a little bit longer for my microns to fully dry. And on this stats page that I'm working on right now, I know I was wanting to color things in with those markers, those Tombow markers that I was using earlier. So in some cases, I'm just giving the ink some time to kind of soak into the paper and actually fully dry before I start coloring over it. So I drew a bookshelf at the top and then a box at the bottom, and now I am drawing 4 circles. This will end up being 5 circles, but I'll talk about that just in a little bit. The books at the top, I know I mentioned in kind of like the intro of this video. I said I was going to write the covers of all of the books that I read in these books, and I do not end up doing that. And the reason that I don't do that is because I thought I would like it more if I just stamped out the numbers with my Notebook Therapy typewriter stamps. And I did significantly like that a lot more. I did not do that on camera though. That's something that I did off camera. I actually did it this morning. But you should be able to see that on my Instagram if you want to go over there and check that out. Since I've got most of my lines drawn out now, I'm going to go ahead and start working on a little bit of decoration. And I'm actually going to use some of these little header sections from these clear stickers. I'm going to use the one that says books read. And then this column down at the bottom, I'm going to color it in with one of the lighter, I think this is the 990 Tombow markers, and I'm actually going to place a reading stats sticker there as well. So because I placed that reading stats sticker right there, I now need a new place to put my average rating, which is what I was originally going to put in that spot. So I drew another smaller circle in the very middle of all of my large circles. And now I am just referencing my Storygraph account to kind of look and see how I needed to draw these lines so that they match like the pie graphs that show up on the stats pages of your account on Storygraph. And I am tracking the page number that I've read, the format in which I read a book, and then I think the other one that I have on here is the type of book, and then I also have genres. Unfortunately, I did not think about the fact that Storygraph has the genres listed in a bar graph instead of a pie graph. So I actually need to go in and calculate what the pie graph should actually look like for the genres that I read. I think it's going to be very, very tiny. The thing, because I only read one book that wasn't a romance book, unless I'm going to split it up into various types of romance tropes as well. I don't know yet. So that one is still not completed yet. It'll be the only one that I do not complete in this video. And like I said, technically have not even completed it yet at all. So I've got some of those other ones already filled in. And let me grab my book here and I can read to you what my percentages are because I cannot see that tiny, tiny screen. So the one that I'm coloring in right now is pages. The very large portion, which is 50% of the books that I read this month or last month, had less than 300 pages. And then 38% were 300 to 499 pages, and then 13% were 500 or more pages. I am then just going to label all of my sections real quick before I move on to coloring in again. And I think that I move on to my book type and color that in next. And I read 63% novels and 38% novellas. I'm going to add the actual word labels, I think, to the third pie graph that I'm doing, but I don't color that in until a little bit later. So that third one is my format, which I do my formats a little bit differently than other people, I think. I don't know. I could just be mistaken and I haven't found my people yet. I don't know. But I have my formats listed as digital books, audiobooks, print books, and then I do immersive books as well. And then the immersive books, I have a print and audio version and then an ebook and audio version. So for the month of January, I read 63% of my books were digital books, and then 13% of my books, which was just one book, was an immersive book in the form of me reading a physical book at the same time that I was listening to an audiobook. And then 25% of the books that I read this month were immersive in the form of me reading a digital book on my Kindle while also listening to the audiobook. And so I don't like to classify those as like split reads because I'm not technically splitting up the way that I'm reading them. I'm full on listening to it while I am also reading along with the words as they're playing, which I did look up, and that is actually called immersive reading, which I finally figured out the word for it. So I'm super happy about that. Now I know what to call it. Let me know if you also read like that down in the comments below. I find it keeps my attention the best, and it is my most favorite way to read. So I flipped back over to my cover page and added that January sticker that I talked about at the beginning. And then we are going to kind of stop working on the stats and totals pages and work on my January challenge page. So for this page, I'm just trimming out these books with my tonic trimmer, and I'm going to lay them down in their respective areas and then kind of try and figure out specifically how I want this layout or these pages to look. And I'm going to end up ripping up a lot more of the tea stained paper. I'm telling y'all, I'm obsessed with this stuff right now. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. But I'm going to add that again and just completely love the way that it looks. I'm going to layer it at the bottom and the top of this page, and I'm actually going to be placing my book covers over top of it. So it's got like a very layered look, but since this tea stained paper is like fairly thin, it's just like regular, almost like notebook paper. It doesn't add too much bulk, but though all of these pages ended up being quite bulky by the time I was done. So I can only imagine how much bulkier they would have been if this was like thicker paper. So I'm getting that added down. And then I believe I will start placing my book covers down. And I'm also going to add a little bit more of that tea stain paper over to the other side on my stats page, just to bring that in over on that side and really tie these two pages together. And then I will start putting my book covers down. And I've got like little rectangle boxes sketched out as to where I wanted to lay down my books, just to kind of keep them evenly spaced apart. And a couple of them are a little bit crooked, but you can't really tell unless you're like really, really looking very hard to see that. And then I had 4 prompts for this challenge that I did. I basically, under the Storygraph challenges, I basically just searched up like January challenges, like basically any challenges that had the word January in it. And I found a challenge called the January 2025 Reading Challenge, and it was by Rose Bookhaven on Storygraph. And it was just, I just joined it. I don't know if you're supposed to do that, like just join random people's challenges, but that's what I did. So I joined that challenge, and then the prompts were a new release, a winter sport, blue or white cover, and then tackle your TBR. So like something that's been on your TBR, I think that you added to your TBR last year that you never got to, and that was the Dictionary of Lost Words for me. My white cover was Unhinged, and then Ricochet was my winter sport prompt. And then Shoot Your Shot was just released in January, so I used that as my new release. And I just used my Pigma Micron to write down the challenge prompts underneath each of the book covers. Here I'm just checking to see if I can use the Torey Alpha from Heba, but it was a little bit too big for me to fit the full word challenge, so I just pulled out a pen and just hand lettered the word challenge. And then I will write in all caps the January 2025 reading challenge and who I got it from, or whose challenge I joined technically. And then that it was from Storygraph right underneath that as kind of like a little bit of a subheading. And then I think once I've got that, I will start adding some stickers and then move on to finishing my coloring on the other page. I'm going to place down some of these washi stickers. I'm going to move that first sticker that I placed down so that it's diagonal from the other sticker that I just put at the top, because it looks really off having both of those stickers on the same side of the page. So I will pull that sticker up and then move it to the other side of the page to really try and balance that spread out a little bit more. And then I will go on and finish coloring my actual pie charts, and my middle circle I will use the N89 for. And I did already talk about what my stat was for that one. That is my format. So that's got my immersive reads and my digital reads. And then I'm pretty sure that the last thing that I will do on these 2 pages is just add some of these dot stickers. And then we will kind of move right along, and we will jump right into all of the books that I read for January. Now, funnily enough, I remember when I was doing my 2024 flip through that I was specifically talking about how the reason I separated all of my book reviews from my monthly pages last year was because I didn't want to feel pressured to use all of the same decorations for all of the book spread pages. And I didn't end up doing that last year because I had separated them. And then the first book review pages that I do for 2025, and I didn't even realize this until I was already like halfway through doing it, I used all of the exact same decorations. So all of my book review pages match the theme for January, which is just, I thought was really funny. So this first spread that I'm doing is going to be a 3-page spread because all 3 of these books were novellas, and I don't usually have a ton to say about novellas. So the first one that I've got here is Queen Takes Knights, and that is by Jolie Sue Burkhart. I have Unhinged by Vera Valentine, and then The Runaway Omega by E.J. Wan. The first 2 books on here, Queen Takes Knights and Unhinged, I found out about from watching Natalie from Weirdo Book Club. She cracks me up. I watch so many of her rant reviews, and it's just they bring me joy. And it's so funny because some of the rant reviews that she has like are books that I have read and not like super hated, but she just tears them apart, and I enjoy it. I'm very much not like, I don't usually go hard for books unless it's like a 5-star read, and 5-star reads are very rare for me. But I'm not one to like argue with people on the internet if they don't agree with a 5-star book. And if I saw somebody complaining about it on the internet, I probably just wouldn't watch that. But some of the books that she's done rant reviews on, I've read, and I've watched her videos and just cracked up because she makes a lot of very, very valid points. So I gave all 3 of these 3 stars. The last one, The Runaway Omega, was one that I think I found just randomly searching through the Kindle store, and I just read it because it was a werewolf book, and I do love me a werewolf book. But yeah, so for the most part, I'm not going to be doing any writing on these. I'm just going to be setting the pages up for me to come in and just write all of the information that I want to have on here. So my title, author, dates read, pages, format, genre, like all that kind of stuff. And then for me to write down my thoughts on the book. So I'm really just getting these set up for myself. You won't see any of my reviews unless I post those to Instagram. And I don't know if I'm going to do that yet. But this next one that I am working on is The Sinner. This is the second book, I believe, in the Lords series. I gave this one, again, 3 stars. I liked the characters in this one, I think, more than the first book. It was decent. I don't really know what to say about this one that wouldn't spoil everything, so I'm probably not going to say much about it. I'm really bad at not spoiling books, so disclaimer, I personally spoil books for myself, like on purpose sometimes, and I could care less about spoilers. I will ask people to spoil things for me because I don't like to be surprised. So it's very hard for me to kind of figure out where I need to stop talking so as to not spoil things for other people. So I don't know how like informative or good any of me talking about these books that I've read will be. So just a disclaimer that if I spoil something for you, I'm so sorry. I am trying not to, and I didn't mean it. But the characters for The Sinner are Sin and Ellie. I did write the names for the characters on each of these after I finished all my setups, because I do like to keep track of character names in my recap pages. So I'm just kind of decorating this. I use lots of skulls because there's lots of like killing and murder and stuff in this book. And then we move right along again. The next book page that I'm going to do is for the Dictionary of Lost Words. And my goodness, did this book take me forever to read. I started this book on January 7th and finished it on January 30th. Like, I literally was with this book for a whole month almost. And it's not because it was bad. Like, I gave it 4 stars as my final like rating. It was like I was interested in it, but like I had to consciously make the effort to pick it up and read it. It didn't like enthrall me like I really need a book to do for me to finish it quickly. So I had to make the effort to go in and read this book. I did really like it. I liked the character. Esme is the main character. It's a first person fiction. It's a historical fiction. And it's told from her like point of view. And for how this book literally goes from her being like 4 or 5 years old to literally like dying of not old age. She didn't die of old age, but like it goes from like her early years all the way to her death. It was a very slow paced book. And it's only 300 and something pages. And again, it took me the whole month. I will say that my favorite character was Gareth. And if you watched my Hobonichi flip through, you will have heard me talking about him because I did a whole little area in my Hobonichi about the day that I finished this book and how on the day that I finished it, like it kind of enraptured me in the last like couple hours of the book. And then, I finished it on the 30th. So I did some spoilers there. So sorry if you got those spoilers, but yeah, I don't know if I'm even making sense, y'all. I really don't. But if you like historical fiction, it's interesting. I did like it a lot. And just like the whole premise, like where I think they mention it in the summary. So potential spoiler warning. She like steals words from the I forgot what it's called, from where her dad works. He like is working on making the first dictionary, so they are being picky and choosy about which words are included in it. So instead of those words being like thrown out or just gotten rid of, she starts kind of stealing them, and then she starts collecting words and makes her own dictionary. And it's just really fun. I really loved the whole premise of the book. It was just very, very slow, and slow-paced books are not usually my jam, but I did finish it, and I'm pretty proud of myself for that. The other book that I have on this spread here is Shoot Your Shot by Hannah Gray. This is a marriage in crisis trope, which is like kind of a little bit of a segue off of a second chance romance kind of trope, which I generally dislike quite a bit. But I ended up thinking that this one was like decent. It wasn't so unbearable for me that I couldn't finish it. I gave that one 3 stars as well, and that's about Colt and Paige, and it's a hockey romance, another hockey romance. So I guess I read 2 of those this month. Probably more than that, honestly. It's one of my favorites. The last 2 books on here that I have for my January pages are going to be Ricochet by River Hale and Sick Bargain by Nordica Knight. Both of these books are dark romances, so definitely if you are reading them or interested in them, check your trigger warnings for sure. And I picked both of these books. Literally, I was just browsing through Kindle Unlimited one day and loved both of the covers. So I decided to download them and read them. They're both on Kindle Unlimited. So, but definitely check trigger warnings because they are dark. Sick Bargain is very, very dark. That one was a wild, wild ride. They have like calling cards in there. So I'm using all of these playing cards as my decoration because it kind of like reminded me of the calling cards. The main character in that one, Ramiel, basically trades like himself, like his person, to the Vile House boys. And basically he no longer belongs to himself. He belongs to them now. So there's a lot of stuff that happens in this particular book. So again, definitely check trigger warnings on that one. It was a wild ride, but I enjoyed it. The other book, Ricochet, is about 2 hockey players. It's a male dark hockey romance. One of them is like obsessed with death, and the other one happens to be a serial killer. This one, I will tell you my favorite quote because I did write a quote on this page to kind of give you an idea of like what it's about, I guess, maybe. I don't know. So my favorite quote for that book was, "So not only did the boy obsessed with death find himself a serial killer, but that same boy who carries around trauma found himself a consent king. Murder good, bad." So I'll probably have to like bleep that out actually. So I don't know. It was a really good fun time for that one as well. I gave both of these books 4 stars. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then for the decoration of that one, I didn't really have any specific thing in mind and kind of just used some random stickers. And then I'm going to stamp everything out. And after I get these hearts stamped for all of my little titles, we are going to move on to my final flip through. So these are all of my January pages, both book review pages and the actual setup. I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below and if you've read any of these books. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!